Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hello, my friends. Today is Mahashivaratri. It is the biggest festival for the Shaivites, the Hindu Shaivites. Shaivites are the people who are worshipping Shiva as the highest god. And today is Shivaratri, means the night of Shiva. It's celebrated throughout India. Ardent Shiva devotees, they fasting today and in the night stay awake. Maybe they go and visit different Shiva temples doing pujas. When I first came to India in 1980, I was in Chinmaya Mission and we celebrated Shivaratri. And I asked people, but what is the meaning of Shivaratri? And that was funny. Although they were chanting mantras the whole day with lot of devotion, intensity, nobody could really give me a proper answer. Shivaratri is the night when Shiva walks. It's Shiva's night. It's Shivaratri. When you Google the meaning of Shivaratri, you also have different versions. Some say Shiva Nataraja, in the form of Nataraja, the dancing Shiva, danced the first time, and with his dance he brought the creation into existence. Then others says it was the time when Shiva married, but actually what strikes me the most as most Hindu festivals basically are a fight between the light and darkness. And one interpretation is that it is the night where Shiva helps to overcome darkness and to overcome ignorance. We can very much use it in this time. There is such a madness, such a chaos all over the world. Yes, may Shiva help us to overcome darkness and ignorance. How are we overcoming darkness? By learning not to be all the time in our calculating mind, remembering, regretting, expecting, looking in the future, calculating how can I do this to squeeze them out the most amount of advantage for myself. It's all creating more that sense of separation, that sense that it's me and the others. To overcome that ignorance, you have to learn to be in the present. Here, now is timeless. Here, now is prior to time. Here, now, there is no sense of separation. So let us feel inspired by Shivaratri to overcome that ignorance of creating that separation all the time, that sense of separation. We are all connected, but we are creating in our mind that sense of separation, which invariably creates pain and suffering sooner or later. If we learn to be in the present, we start to become aware how we are connected with everything. And this is the way to get out of suffering. Let us be inspired by that festival of the divine that helps us to overcome darkness and ignorance. We have to be alert, become aware how we are functioning, become aware how we have the tendency to continuously reinforce that delusion of separation with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our actions, and especially with the identification with the thoughts, the emotions, and the actions. The Shiva, the ardent Shiva devotee should fast and should remain awake, should remain alert on Shivaratri. It's symbolic for that call to be alert all the time. We don't have to fast all the time. We don't have to stay up all the nights. But that we learn to be alert, awake, in the present. See how we are functioning. See what we are doing to ourselves all the time. And then let it go. Relax it. Those who like ceremonies, they go and do a lot of pujas. It's supposed to be very auspicious on Shivaratri, to go in Shiva temples, to do pujas in front of the Shiva statue or front of the Shiva lingam. And of course, as it is in the Hindu tradition, then people can also go with certain desires and hope they're getting fulfilled when they do so. But the deeper meaning of all that auspiciousness is always it should help us to overcome that darkness and ignorance. It should help us to become aware that we are connected with the divine, that we are essentially divine, that everything is essentially that same divinity. Those who like to do pujas, by all means, do pujas. Those who don't feel like doing pujas, you don't have to do pujas. Do that essential puja. Worshipping the divine by becoming aware, it is my own essence. By being awake in the present moment, in the timelessness of the now. And then relax. Relax in it. Okay, that much about Shivaratri. Now I come to a question our friend Lalita has asked. She's in Germany and she's in contact with people who are now traveling. A number of them have come to Tiruvannamalai and she likes very much to come to Tiruvannamalai and is sad for not being able to do so. And then she asks in that context, What about our desires? What about our vasanas? If we have unfulfilled desires, and then we get out of this life, and these desires are still there, how can we somehow, what is happening to them? Is it necessary to reincarnate to get these desires fulfilled? And if that is so, is it not better to make sure to fulfill the desires? Not that they are unfulfilled and we have to come back again, starting the story all over. Well, that is certainly not the way to go about it, hoping that the more I'm fulfilling desires, the more they are gone. Because if we are fulfilling desires without being alert, then we are just deepening that idea in our consciousness, in our subconscious, that we need things in order to be fulfilled, in order to be happy. And so fulfilling desires without being alert, we're just creating new desires. We're creating new vasanas. We're creating or we're strengthening existing vasanas. Now, don't you worry about future lives, future incarnations. Let's just be consciously here now. Become aware that even this incarnation is not really as it's what it seems to be. That your being, your essential being, is even now not incarnated. Then that being has projected in this world with a certain amount of tendencies. Tendencies as such, they are not wrong. There are tendencies that are perfectly valid and they are manifesting in a beautiful way. And then there are tendencies that if we have a good look at them, we see if we give way to them, they have the habit of always creating trouble. And we can learn to detach from those. In Sanskrit, there are two words. The Vedanta is using usually vasanas and the Sankhya is usually using samskaras. Actually, they mean the same. They are neutral, they mean tendencies that are there. But then in the tradition, it has a bit become a habit that when people talk about good, helpful tendencies, they talk about samskaras, and when they talk about tendencies that create troubles, they talk about vasanas. But basically, the word is neutral. Now, if we see in ourselves that we have tendencies that if we are letting them manifest, if we are following them, invariably they create again suffering. Then we are very well advised that we have always a good look at ourselves and see when they are coming up and learn to detach from it. Not out of fear that if we are not doing that, we have to reincarnate simply because we make our life happier. Simply because we are fed up with creating suffering all the time. We don't have to do that. But then there are other tendencies. Like for a musician, the tendency is to make music. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Of course, it depends how we are doing that. That tendency can then be a manifestation, an expression of the beauty of the self. And then it's something very beautiful. Or we can make music and mainly feed our ego and be very proud and look around for how much feedback, how much praise I'm getting for it, then of course it's again laying the seeds of suffering. Because when it's there, we seem to be happy. When it's not there, we are unhappy. Don't worry about fulfilling all the desires that in order to not carrying over desires that have to reincarnate again. Let those desires be fulfilled that come along and go easy. But be alert, be here, be now, and become aware that even when you fulfill desires, the happiness that we are experiencing is not coming from the outside. It's not coming from the circumstances. It's coming from our own self. If we are in circumstances that please us, that we like, then we relax. And in that relaxation, we become more aware how that joyousness of existence is there all the time. It comes to the surface and we can be happy. So the way of getting rid of vasanas, of tendencies, is not to fulfill as many desires as possible, but to be alert. And then from day to day, as the life is presenting the situations, we can fulfill those desires, but it's good to be also, while doing so, alert that we see the happiness I'm experiencing is independent. It's not coming from the outside. It's not that we have to somehow try to wipe out every last trace of vasanas, of tendencies. We just can remove those that create trouble. And not out of fear for future births. No, simply because it makes total sense to live in the now and to detach from those actions and thoughts and feelings and reactions that invariably create pain, that lead to suffering for ourselves and those around. You're here now, timeless. Even now, you're not really incarnated, but just projecting an aspect in this time-space continuum. It's good to become aware that the I feeling in that projection is just a reflection of what you are. Follow that reflection back to the source, and then you need not worry about past lives, future incarnations. The being may decide to project again in this world, but fully out of free choice, because it thinks it's good to learn certain lessons, to experience certain circumstances, not out of a karmic compulsion because there were unfulfilled desires. So don't worry about it. You said you had quite a number of desires that are still there. Those that are possible, that you can do those things that you have wish for, fine. You can do them, and don't worry about those that you can't. You are free, here, now. Free from birth and death. Free from incarnation and reincarnation. Here, now. Bring the attention back to that and live without fear of the future, without regret about the past. Learn the lesson from the past and be ready and open for whatever is going to happen in this drama of the human existence in the future, but be here now, fearless. And even if because of situations fear is coming, which is a subject for most of the people. Then we can see that fear, observe that fear, let it manifest, see what it is doing to the experience right now, and learn to relax. And if we are not resisting to fear, if we are not afraid of the fear, then it doesn't mean it's such a terrible experience. It doesn't turn into terror. Then fear comes, like any experience. It's there for a moment, it goes, it's fine. There is no problem with it. Certain tendencies are simply there, and we can very well let them in place because they don't create suffering. They direct a bit the show, how the story goes in this incarnation. That is not really an incarnation. And they don't pose a problem. And the other tendencies, other vasanas, they strengthen that sense of separation. And along with it, they cause pain and suffering. And that we can take the trouble to really observe them very carefully and learn to let them go, learn to detach from them. All right, my friends, I stop simply talking away like this, and I'm asking you, is there anyone of you who would like to come in and say something? You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Leora.
So today I thought I wouldn't be here.
But there you are.
Yeah. I decided that it's more important for me to be here rather than doing what I had desire to do. Literally. So I want to say a little bit about the experience of the dark and light, because this week I really felt it very strong that things are happening, but there is darkness also. I mean, maybe it's not a bat, and there is darkness. Now it has been less obvious to me that there are the bad ones and the good ones this week. It's mostly the feeling of a big mess. Maybe like children when they argue, like when they fight and they like really, it's on one hand it's really serious. On the other hand, it's sort of losing its point, really, in a way. And what really helps me is when I join, sometimes there are panels of like professionals. So when they speak, specifically the panel that I have joined this week, they have like a distance from the situation, maybe because they're in the academy and they teach and they understand things, specifically the issues that are going on in Israel now. They're experts on those issues. And So when they speak about it, it gives like, to me, like more understanding, and then it creates a sort of space.
Mm.
It's less aggressive. It feels less aggressive. And also, I wanted to say that due to that, even though I have been to a big demonstration this week in Jerusalem in the parliament during the day, that what you spoke about desires and things we have to do, and you said it to me last week also, and you mentioned it so often about me, I have to do something because me, I'm here and I have to do something. And then since of yesterday or maybe today, I felt, yeah, I have a desire, and I expressed it before. I have a desire to be part of this drama. And you said last week something about me. So it has now like some lightness. I feel a bit lighter about me. Have to go there. And I felt such warmth. Today it's a beautiful day. The sky is blue and it's warm. It has been raining here and very cold, and everybody's going to the forest and people are selling things and food, and it's really great, and beautiful red flowers, and everybody's happy. And I met my neighbor who I haven't seen for quite a while, and she was so warm to me and I was so warm to her. And then I told her husband that I'm not going to go to the demonstration today. So he said, oh, too bad, because we need somebody to represent us there. And it felt good. It felt like...
Liora, can you come a bit to the point?
I don't have a point today. I just want to share the process that like that somehow there is lightness, and I feel somehow closer to the people around me. Yeah, really. I don't really have a question, just like wanted to share this.
Yeah. Anyhow,
Yeah.
It's nice to hear that you are lighter about it. What we said the last time about the me, because you can very well go if you feel that's a genuine expression of yourself, that you go and are part in it, but not with the motivation that after that you can say that you have been part of it and make it into a me story, but simply whatever you do, if it's a genuine expression of yourself, then it's the right thing to do. Yes, nice to hear that it's getting lighter and it's getting more in this direction.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
The cloud somehow disappeared together with the
and
weather.
What you said, there is darkness and light, but there are it's difficult to say there are the good guys and the bad guys. Yes, that's true, because people have always the option every moment to open up towards the light or towards the darkness. And those who are supposedly the good guys, suddenly one moment they open up not to some very lightful thing, and then so the potential is there in everybody to be in harmony, to be in tune with something constructive, something expansive, or then slip into something very destructive, contractive. So that there are not so the purely good guys and the purely bad guys, It depends how much people are capable of opening up consciously to the lightful, to the expansive. Then we call them usually the good guys, and those who are victim to slip always into that downward spiral that is contracting the consciousness and making it more me centered. Then we call it the bad guys, but the possibility is there in everybody every moment to choose this way or that way.
What I meant was more the good guys are the people who think like I do, and the bad guys are the people who don't think like I do. That's a serious, yeah, you see, this is what I meant when I said good guys and bad guys.
Right.
This is where it was for me, so it didn't feel very, very nice.
Yeah. No, of course, if you feel right the way you think, then naturally you have an affinity with people who think like this. But thinking in a certain way doesn't prevent you to be very dark about it. So it depends really the individual choice from moment to moment. What is the basic motivation? Is it just a new ego trip because I'm right? Or is it really something that genuinely wants to bring more light into the world?
But it's also something about opinions and judgment.
Mm. Of course, one can have all kinds of opinions, but if they are not destructive with it, then they are not necessarily good or bad guys because of their opinions. It depends much more with the motivation. Of course, certain opinions make it easier to be open to the light than others. But even if you have basically the good opinions, we can be very dark about it. We can be very egoistic about it. And then it becomes more important that I'm right and they are wrong than really bringing something constructive and good into the current.
Yeah, I'm happy that I shared what I shared, even though it was a bit like with no point, because there was a point, and now the dialogue with you made the point very clear. And this is like the last sentence you said to me now. So that had sort of cleared my conscience a little bit.
Very good. Shall we leave it at that?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Is there anybody who would like to come in?
I would like to.
Oh, hello.
Hi,
Cornelia, are you back in Germany?
Yes.
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 Hmm.
And it was so good to hear you talking about Shivaratri. I mean, I'm not here yet. As you know, I just left Monday. I arrived Tuesday afternoon, and I so don't want to be here. I mean, I also didn't want to leave Tiru, and now I don't want to be here. The first 2 days it was okay, you know, like arranging everything, doing errands, just do the next right thing. I mean, it was so good to hear you talking about here and now. But what if I so know that the here and now is not where I want to be, like what you shared about that other friend in Germany? And I know that it's not a solution to just step in the next airplane and fly to Tirunga or fly to Chennai and come to Tirunga. It's not the solution. Oh, but you know, nobody's on the street here. it's gray, it's lonely, it's just, oh, we are there with you, somebody's saying thank you. Yes, you also.
Of course, that can happen if you had a good time and then you come in the old environment and somehow everything is waiting there to jump on you, that you could get a bit distanced from when you were away. But the here and now is not really a point in time and not a point in space. The here and now is just that being consciously conscious. Okay, then you find your experience there back in your old environment. But the here and now is timeless and spaceless. And if you manage to connect with that, then suddenly it doesn't matter that you find yourself there in the old environment. And then you can still choose, since you seem to have the possibility how long you want to stay, what you want to do, whether you soon want to come back or maybe you stay longer. As I understood, you don't have a fixed obligation that forces you to stay any amount of time. But not with the spirit of you need to run away from that. It's good that if you are there now, that you become strong in being there. And okay, all right, the experience is again, the outside experience is again that other scenario. But the here and now is the same, like whether you are in Germany or in Tiruvannamalai.
I can see that point. Werner was running away from something that I could see. But, you know, and it's just also the logistics. It feels very exhausting to jump from one place to the other. That's not kind of, when I came here, I thought, oh, I can only do that in 2 years again, because there's so much of arranging things. And but the point is, you know, that when this, I don't know, this is in Tiruvannamalai, I just look at the scenery and I just feel joy, you know. And here, and I really connected to people, and some people say, oh, it's good you're back, and, you know, yes, and if I look at people, I also feel joy here. That's not the point, you know. It's more, most of the time I don't see anybody. And then how to connect with the self and just be okay with this. Just be, as you said, you know, and I really try that. I did meditation and yeah, well, I don't know what to ask.
Anyhow, there is life.
Yeah.
Even if you don't meet people, even if you don't see people, you look out, you see the trees, you see plants, you may hear the birds, you see the sky and the clouds. It's full of life. We can connect with that life no matter where we are. It's not necessarily that the street must be crowded like in Tiruvannamalai.
Well, you know, also these people here, I already had 2 answers here, people saying, I feel you, you know, and I just felt connected in Tiru with all of you, you know, when we had Satsang or in the ashram, and it was always available, go out and sit there, and there are people around, and I can feel that with the nervous system, you know, my nervous system is freaking out here again. Like, this is not something here, it's my body, it's like crazy.
Yeah. So you have to learn to breathe and relax, then the nervous system also will calm down. And
Yeah.
of course, the company you had here is not available. The ashram is not available, but the essence, you are available all the time. And you, in your essence, you are complete. You don't need anyone. You don't need a special scenario. You are complete in yourself. If you are capable of letting go, of relaxing, then that awareness dawns more and more. Hey, it's nice if I can be somewhere where I like to be, but then if it's somehow because of whatever forces, it's not the case, you still can connect. It's always available with the essence, which is complete, which is full of joy, which is the source of life and consciousness.
Thank you.
I wish you well. I wish you well.
Thank
It
you.
will pass. The gloominess will pass. Huh?
Okay, yeah, this too shall pass, I know. Thank you.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Vikas.
Hello, Vikas.
Hi, I was there in your satsang day last to last time, and because of my friend Sabrina, I have logged in. I've come to Mumbai now. So my question is regarding how to stop the judgmental mind. Like the lady before was saying, my mind keeps judging people. Then it becomes really difficult. Like I realize that I'm judging every time. That this person is not correct, this is not correct.
Yeah.
And
I think the best way to stop the judgmental mind is learn to honestly have a good look at oneself instead of always looking at the others. And then we become aware, actually, I'm busy judging myself all the time too. And we can learn to stop that we may see tendencies in ourselves that we don't like so much, then no need of an emotional judgment, but we just see it and learn to detach from it. And the more we are capable of stopping being judgmental about our own self, then automatically we judge less and less all the other people around. It's one way of distracting the attention by always looking what all the others are doing and being judgmental about them in order not to take the trouble to see what we ourselves are doing to ourselves. And if you catch yourself being judgmental, if you become aware that I'm going again and think, that's really a bad person and it's really wrong what they are doing, then you can look at the situation maybe from a step back. And you can still maybe feel that that action is not right. At the same time, you can also become aware that person, because of their own conditioning, because of their own way they are functioning, they in a way can't help it. So it's no need of being judgmental. Maybe I can tell them, look, this is not so well, or maybe if it's not possible, then you can accept, okay, they are in their current with their own burden, and from their viewpoint, they are not aware what they are doing, that it's not nice. But in order to be capable of doing that with other people, we have to learn to be capable of doing it with ourselves, to have a good look at ourselves and see, after all, I have my ideas and my ideals, and then if I have an honest look, so many times I'm doing quite the opposite. And there is an emotion about it, whether we are aware of it or not, and the judgmentality in it And we can learn to let go of that judgmentality and just see what is happening. And when we see it, when we are conscious, then we can work on it in the sense of picking up that trait and learning to let go, learning to relax. No need of being judgmental, just clear. And the clearer we are with ourselves, the easier it becomes to accept people the way they are. Because we can see they are also sort of victim of their conditioning. And then they will act the way they act, even if it's not very nice and harmonious many times.
Thank you, Werner. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you are in Mumbai now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, wish you well. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come in? You're welcome.
Hi, Werner.
Hello, Andreas.
Sometimes when I meditate, I mean, my self-centeredness go away, but really feeling, so I'm not so centered, so self-centered anymore, but to feel connected is something I rarely experience. What can I do about that?
You don't worry about it. You know, it's not that you have to artificially now put your feelers out and try to feel connected. But when you say that self-centeredness starts to disappear, along with it starts to the feeling of being separate is also disappearing. And actually that automatically, that feeling of connectedness is there. If we don't create that sense of separation, then there is that connectedness. Even if you don't feel that now I and that tree over there, we are very clearly, spatially connected, you don't produce that sense of separation, and there you are connected.
Okay. I just asked because I feeling isolated and separate from other people is a strong tendency in my life.
Yes.
And this is, yeah, I mean, okay, but to work with that, it rather would be something psychological, right?
Yeah, I mean, psychological and spiritual work are not so separate as some people try to do, to tell. There are teachers who say that's totally two different things, psychology and spirituality. And of course, I agree that the spiritual search goes deeper, goes beyond psychology. But psychology is a part of the spiritual search, because on the psychological level, we are creating all those obstacles. And if we are not addressing those obstacles on the psychological level, then there is a very little chance that we can go beyond it and go deeper to it. And right, what you said, that sense of isolation is something that is extremely strong. People live in crowds together in cities, and most of the people feel lonely and isolated in the midst of the crowd there. And it's something that we are creating by our conditioning, how we are functioning, our feelings, our thoughts, our actions that strengthen that sense of me and the others. And you say in your meditation, that sense of ego-centeredness sometimes disappears. And actually, along with it, disappears that sense of isolation. that we are connected is a fact. That we are isolated is something that we have created. It's something in the mind, psychological, and we reinforce it so much and so often, unconsciously, that it appears to be a solid fact, that it's really a fact of life, but it's something that we keep on creating and recreating. And when we don't stop creating that sense of isolation, we don't have to somehow then create the sense of being connected. If that isolation is gone, you simply are connected.
Yeah, I still don't feel that. I don't feel it so much. You know, it's maybe the meditation doesn't go deep enough. I just feel like opening up,
yeah,
but not like connected.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. But deal with the opposite, with that which makes you feel separate and isolated. And the more that disappears, the more you feel natural. And it's something maybe we have to learn to perceive. Then gradually you become more aware when that feeling of isolation disappears, that you simply are connected.
Can I ask a rather like maybe technical question to the term samskara?
Sure.
I know that it means to put together, right? In the English translation.
Actually, I'm not sure.
It's a Buddhist term too, sankhara, and I mean I checked it quite a bit. And does you'd say it's like tendencies, and is it also the tendency to put this world together in a way, to assemble because it said in Buddhism that like samskara, pachaya means influence consciousness.
Is that Pali or is that Sanskrit?
I'm mixing it up. It's Pali. Sankhara is Pali, and it's the Sanskrit is samskara.
Right, but then the Buddhists and the Hindus have used the word slightly different. And I have now based what I said before on the Hindu tradition, because that's what I learned more than the Buddhist tradition. And actually, I don't know the exact translation of the word from the Sanskrit, but in the Sankhya philosophy, which is an old philosophical school, actually prior to the modern Vedanta, they simply meant with the samskaras our tendencies, the same thing that after that the Vedantins mean with vasana. Hey. And yeah, I mean, you can interpret it the way you said, but I cannot say that's what it means. And especially the terms are used often slightly differently in one tradition and another. And I came now from the Indian tradition.
Yeah, because it's not very clear in Buddhist neither what the term means, and there's a lot of discussion about it. And since I thought maybe you're closer to the source of it, because it originally came from Sanskrit terminology or from Hinduistic background.
I'm not a scholar. I haven't studied the roots of those words. I simply know how they have been used traditionally.
No, yeah, I just was interested because it's like you know from experience, I believe, that how the world gets put together by our tendencies. And that's, I mean, at that point, the tendencies come in, don't they?
Right. Our reality, as we are experiencing it, is being held in place and made to appear so real because we think about it all the time. If we stop thinking about that reality all the time, it starts to get fluffy and slowly disappear and not more look the same. And in that sense, you can say we're putting it together all the time by being so emotionally attached, and that produces a continuous stream of thoughts about the whole story. Usually people, without being aware, from the moment they wake up till they go to sleep, it goes round and round and round and round their story. And in that way, their reality, their experience is being kept in place and looks as solid reality, but actually it's only so real because we think about it all the time. And in that sense, you're right, we are putting it together.
I mean, yeah, our brain has to do it. I believe, like from a neurobiologist viewpoint, that like, because if you have certain dysfunctions in the brain, you cannot, some parts of that reality don't work anymore.
Right, but the brain is just an instrument. It's not the brain really that is thinking. It is consciousness. You have that subtle ability to form consciousness into thoughts. And then on this material human level, it goes through the brain. And if the brain is not functioning, then it cannot more transmit the thoughts properly. But the brain is an organ, physical organ. It is a tool.
So it's not the brain that making it, it's just coming through.
Yes, the brain is sort of the transmitter, or to connect with this body and with this time-space reality. But the thoughts are not produced by the brain. Once the consciousness goes out of the body, thoughts can still be there without the brain.
So the consciousness is producing the thoughts by help of the brain?
Well, the brain helps it to manifest it on this level. But there is that capacity in consciousness to form consciousness into thoughts. And that doesn't need a brain. It's prior to the brain. But then the brain is necessary that it can be somehow translated in a reasonable, understandable way on this material level.
Okay, thank you very
much. And of course, if that transmitter is not functioning well, then it doesn't function, then it doesn't come through properly anymore.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm very interested in this, and I mean, I don't know how much the other people are interested in it, so I leave the space open now.
Well, I just say one more word about it. The science basically tries to tell us that consciousness is a byproduct of matter, and that somehow through the evolution of matter that the consciousness has evolved. But then I think it's the opposite. There is consciousness, and out of that comes the manifestation. And that capacity of intelligence is there inherent in consciousness. It's not something that has evolved. It's not the brain that is producing intelligence. The elephant has a much bigger brain than humans. Doesn't mean it's much more intelligent because of that.
Werner, if you allow, can I add something?
Yeah.
What I had read and gone through. So I came across some videos which says that there are beings which affect us, affect our consciousness, and because of those beings, we get those kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
So if like we are having a satsang, there are beings around us who are supporting us, giving us those thoughts, and That is why we are sitting here in a satsang. But if we are sitting in a pub, or suppose things, places which may be considered not so good, then there are beings from lower realms which affects our consciousness and gives those kinds of thoughts. So is this correct?
It's certainly there. It has an influence, but it's not the whole of the story. That being that you are has that creative possibility to form consciousness into reasonable thoughts. And there is absolutely nothing wrong. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful expression of the self. But then as a manifestation, we are in the midst of so many influences, subtle and gross. And there are subtle influences that have the tendency that we are thinking then more in one way than another, but then it's still up to you whether you choose to open up to it or not, whether you give way to the negative influence or whether you're opening to something positive, harmonious, expansive. That possibility is always there, but in order to be able to choose to do so, we have to be aware of it. We have to be more alert. As long as we are half asleep, then we are just being pushed around by forces all the time without knowing that they even exist.
Okay.
But coming back to the discussion with Andreas, it's not the brain that is thinking. Of course, there is the continuous electrical discharge going on. There is a subtle physical function going on when thoughts are there, but the brain is the instrument through which this is happening. The thoughts come from a more subtle level, from consciousness, and from subtler levels where beings consciously or unconsciously try to influence us. That is also there.
Werner?
Yes.
Consciousness is a very difficult term, because
Yes.
usually when we talk about consciousness, it's like the thing when I'm awake, in opposite to being asleep. But this consciousness that you talk about seems to be much broader, right?
Right. There is the waking human consciousness, the experience of the waking human consciousness. But consciousness is first pure consciousness. And it's also at the same time pure energy. And it's also at the same time pure love. And out of that ground comes the whole manifestation. Subtler first, and then in the gross manifestation. So when I talk about consciousness, then I mean that essential, basic consciousness.
Is that individual or universal?
That is universal. It's even prior to the universe. But then within that one consciousness, there are many individual, essentially the same. Essentially, it's the same consciousness, and yet there is also something unique about it. So it's both, but essentially it's the same. Your consciousness, my consciousness does not really exist. There is consciousness simply through Andreas, and the being that is prior to Andreas, it has its own flavor how it's manifesting, slightly different from the fellow who appears as Werner. But essentially it's the same consciousness.
It seems that I'm very far away from realizing that.
Anyhow, we just do what we can. And what you said, that's the good direction. You said in your meditation, it happens that self-centeredness sometimes starts to dissolve. That's, go ahead like this. That's good. Great.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
We leave it at that, huh? Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come in? Leo came. Do you want to say something, Leo? Huh? Nope. He's just laying down. Hello, somebody's coming. Oh, doesn't seem so. There was a camera on for a moment. In a way, it doesn't matter also so much whether one in a more scientific way believes there is the matter and then there the consciousness evolves and the intelligence evolves with the material evolution, or whether one believes first is the consciousness and out of that the whole creation comes. What matters is what we are doing with our experience now. No matter what we are believing. More scientific oriented person, if they learn to be conscious in the present, and then experience more and more what Andreas just said, that self-centeredness starts to disappear, in that being rooted in the timelessness of the now, then automatically, eventually, that the awareness comes, that all is connected, and that material manifestation actually is something that appears and disappears all the time. That it doesn't have that continuity that we believe it has. It's more like flashes of experience, and then it's more into the memory. We put it together as a continuous story, continuous experience. The scientist who goes deeper and deeper automatically will start to become aware of something that is prior to matter. Einstein, the great Einstein, the top scientist Einstein, he became more and more spiritually open the more he went deeper with his understanding of the physical manifestation, the more he became aware, but that understanding is just scratching a little the surface of something which is way beyond. That's why then after that, his fellow scientists thought when he was getting older, he's getting a bit cuckoo. But actually, because he was so sincere in his digging into reality, invariably he became aware there is way more than the material understanding and analysis of reality. It's just an expression of some, what he would then say, supernatural force. If there is sincerity in the longing for truth, then no matter from which angle we come, somehow it comes closer and closer together and becoming to the same results. The basic motivation needs to be that longing for truth, yearning for reality. And along with it, because deep down, everybody knows it's our birthright to be happy, to be fulfilled, to not carry all the time that nagging sensation something is terribly missing. Deep down we know it because it's our true nature. And we try to fulfill it with all kinds of stuff, but somehow it doesn't work. And somewhere there is that longing to be back in our natural state. But we can bury it with a lot of stuff. And what we need is to turn the attention to the source and become aware of that longing. That longing will carry us home, no matter from which angle we are coming, whether we are starting out more with a spiritual teaching or whether we are starting out with a scientific background. Is there anybody? There is Andreas again. Hello.
If nobody else wants, I go for it. Do I have to drop my thinking to go into that?
Not necessarily. It's not that your thoughts have to stop totally, that you can become aware, but it's good to be aware of the thoughts and then reduce them, that we can free ourselves from the compulsion to think all the time. Thinking is an instrument, and as long as it's an honest expression of ourselves, then it's a beautiful instrument. And it should be an instrument that is being used where it's appropriate and then put aside. But somehow we have been using it, misusing it all the time without knowing, because we grew up in a world where everybody is misusing that capacity in such a way, and invariably as children we join the club and also start to think and think and think, and then it becomes such a strong habit that it's a terrible compulsion to think all the time. And it's good to learn to detach from that. That doesn't mean that you have to try to control them and not think a thought. It's more like to stop being interested in all the rubbish that we are thinking all the time and turn the attention to being consciously conscious in the present and learn to relax. If we redirect the attention, the thoughts will start to slow down all by themselves. But it's not said that you have to be capable of thinking no thought at all to become aware of that essence. But as long as the thoughts are just whirling and whirling and whirling, it's good to become at all aware that this is happening, and then learn to consciously redirect the attention. Not so much try to control it, but redirect the attention.
My thinking process is always involved in remaining with some kind of control. Like a lot of times I'm just checking, like, do I do this right? Is this the correct experience? Is or how should I proceed on? And it's always, I mean, well, to make maybe the point clearer, when you just talk, there's like a German philosopher, Thomas Metzinger, and he's very interested in consciousness, and he's very, and he makes he does Zen meditation, and he's experimenting with LSD, but I have the inkling feeling that he never really gets it, because he always remains a philosopher. That it's the ultimate position, that his thinking has to, he has to scientifically approve what's happening. Yeah,
right.
I mean, this is a very, and in some way I'm like that too. Like, I always want to check if that's the right thing I'm doing.
Right. And that is something that we have to finally let go, that desire to understand reality. You cannot possibly understand the essence. We can understand a lot, how we can catch the attention, the mechanism, to liberate ourselves from the obstacles, to turn the attention in the right direction, but we cannot understand reality. No analysis will bring that about. And as long as somebody tries to catch reality and then say that's how it is, then it's always a lost cause, because reality is prior to the intellect, prior to the mind, prior to understanding. Pure consciousness, and then even pure consciousness is already the first expression of that mystery of existence that can absolutely not be understood. All these philosophies, all the spiritual teachings, they may give us good pointers. And if we use them like this, then they may be very helpful. If you hear the teaching of a great master like Ramana Maharshi, if we simply listen with the intellect, then we can come to the conclusion, oh yes, I understood, I know what's true. And then we are stuck on the intellectual level. Or then we can read what he is talking, what he has written, and open the heart towards that space from where this wisdom came. And then the teaching may be a bridge, but it's never really going to define reality. No matter how beautiful the words are being put together, it's never defining reality. It's simply pointing. It's giving the mind of the listener a possibility to tune into that current, and then we have to let go. So if somebody tries to explain reality to its essence, either they fool themselves or they give it up. And they may fool themselves and think, now I got it. But you can't get it. You can't understand. You can simply be, and that you are.
Would you say that simplicity is very helpful in that?
Sooner or later, everybody becomes very simple. We may start out with very complicated intellectual acrobatics and philosophies, and gradually it becomes simpler and simpler. Reality is so simple that we cannot possibly understand it. But if we reduce the intellectual and the mental complications to some degree, it's getting easier to open the heart to that simplicity of existence.
I think I understand what, or I have an inkling what you mean, but in a way I think it's very important that you think consciousness comes first and then it influences matter, because like as a psychologist, I have to deal with a lot of sick people or people who have cancer and are threatened by that. And for a lot of them nowadays, it's very difficult to I mean, they completely ignore death in most of my patients, because it's a tendency in the society, and it's a and they're very afraid because they have a very materialistic viewpoint, that they are very identified with their body, and this makes it very difficult. And and even they have like the only thing they expect from life is pleasant experience, and it's very hard to. Usually, I don't even try to open them to something else because they don't get it.
Right, and if somebody is not ready to hear that, then instead of helping, they just make a wall. You have to catch people on the level where they are, and then help them from there to broaden their experience. And maybe as a psychologist, you help them to overcome their mechanism to make themselves miserable. But if you try to force them to to go beyond, then they just make a block, and it doesn't help them.
No, I don't do that.
No, I'm sure you don't. But for yourself, you can be sure there is first that pure consciousness, and out of that pure consciousness, this is the ground. That pure consciousness, that pure life energy, that pure love of existence. That ground with its three aspects, and out of that, life likes to express itself. Out of that, that whole experience of manifestation comes. And so you are that essence that is prior to that manifestation. You are not the product of the physical body, but the physical body is a tool through which you are expressing yourself on this material level. And so you are before that. And your thoughts are prior to that body. And then it's expressing the process through the brain, through the nervous system, through the body on this level. Even if you cannot make your patients conscious of that, it's good for you to remember that. And then we have to stop, try to understand that pure consciousness. But we can understand the mechanisms, how the attention gets lost on the material level or subtle level, and we can understand the mechanism to catch that attention and redirect it in the good direction. And then the understanding has done its job. Then it's just a matter of letting go and being quiet and open.
If I do that in meditation, I think I learn more and more that it's not. For long years, I thought that it has to do something with the subtlety of my perception or feeling, or that I have to get more subtler in the awareness of my breath. But in the last weeks or month, I more and more feel that this is the wrong direction. It's much more simpler. I just have to be there and don't try to not make it finer and finer, just relax and center, like you say.
Yes, exactly. Incidentally, it has the tendency that your perception becomes subtler, but you don't have to try to make your perception subtler. You just connect and relax, and then see what happens.
Can you give a description of how you center?
It is very helpful. I have said it many times to people. You choose a physical point, because there is where the attention is always a bit hooked. You choose a physical point where you are centering most naturally. And then if you physically center at that point, that doesn't mean you have to withdraw the attention from the rest, your experience of life from the rest of your body, but that somehow there is a general major focus in one place, it helps, it becomes a tool to make it easier to redirect the attention from the mental obsession, from the attachment to whatever we are busy with, to have that physical center. And from there, all we have to do is to relax. And it's like you're right behind it.
So it's not about being completely absorbed in that center or in that point or having this very fine perception there. It's more like center there and relax.
Yes, yes, yes. It's not that you have to reduce your experience to that point. It's just a help to make it easier to be connected in the now, in the timelessness of the now. If you have a point and you use it again and again, it becomes easier and easier, even when you are not meditating, when you are in the midst of a tense situation and you have somehow the grace to remember, to center and relax there, then the more you have used it, the easier it is, even in such a situation, to really connect with your timeless essence.
Yeah, every time I start meditation, the body feels different, and then a different point comes into the center.
You can also let that happen, but you can have your main center where you feel most familiar, and then you rather observe from that point how the attention is centering in different points in the body.
It always changes all the time.
Yes, you can let that happen. It's not a contradiction that you have your center and in a way you are focused there, and then all this other stuff may still happen. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then we stop the satsang for today with this. I wish you all well. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om.